Hello and welcome, art lovers. This is Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. Sick of that yet? Well, too bad. Today I wanted to take a look at. Actually, I'm kind of kicking off an entire couple of weeks of this. I wanted to look at the Human Alliance line from, I believe it was Dark of the Moon, I think. But I wanted to take a look at Human Alliance because, for lack of a better comparison, it's sort of like the movie versus version of the Masterpiece series. Like, these are about as detailed and in depth as the movie toys ever got. So, wanted to kick things off with Barricade because I have him, and of all the ones that I own, he's probably my least favorite. Which isn't to say that I don't like him; just the others rank much higher. Now, this Barricade I actually did get in the 2-pack with Soundwave, and I'll include a link down there so that you can take a look at it for yourself. So his colors are a little bit different than the original release, specifically these parts down here, which will make a lot more sense in robot mode. They were a little bit more of a grayish color as opposed to like this almost olive green, but it's not a huge difference. So anyway, looking at Barricade, he is a very muscly police car. Just like he's supposed to be. I do appreciate how, there wasn't a whole lot they could do for color here. It's a police car, black and white. It's got the black, the white on the doors. But there's some nice little details that they included. Like, get in close here, you can see the Decepticon logo there. A nice police logo there. And to punish and enslave right in the back there. I think that's just like the movie. And then also they've added some detail with like the lights and on the back as well. And the license plate also is to punish and enslave, basically. Have that on the side there. And the front has the blinkers and like the clear plastic over the headlights, which is nice. And then, of course, along the top, you have the police lights, more police, 643, whatever that means. So color-wise, there wasn't a whole lot they could do with it, but I think it's really nice that they were able to have a little bit of color picked out here and there, which just, I think, works really well for it. They did a good job with what they could. Now, the Human Alliance figures, just like the alternators, which I will touch on the alternators at some point in the future, they have a similar... That door is sticky. They have a similar thing where you can actually open the doors and look inside. I'll have to pop that in from there. But, there's actually some nice details on the inside as well. Movable steering wheel, which you can't really see is movable, but there you go. Totally movable. Seats, which actually have pegs for figures, like smaller figures, to be pegged into, so they can actually sit in there. Some nice molded detail in the interior of the doors. And you can just sort of see it. It's difficult to pick up on the camera, but there's actually some little bit of dashboard details in there, like speedometers and stuff. And on this side, there's also a glove compartment. So there's an impressive amount of detail in this vehicle mode. Right down to the vents along the hood here. And I do think it's also really nice how there are some panels around here, but they actually kind of conform to the shape of the vehicle pretty nicely. So they're a little bit, they don't stand out as much. Like, especially in the hood here, like all of this stuff kind of opens up, but it's difficult to really tell just from a quick glance. All right, so Human Alliance Barricade in vehicle mode, pretty nice. He's a cool-looking police car. But there's, of course, that's not why we're here. It's not because of the car. So, I'm going to change him into his robot form and be right back. All right. And Human Alliance Barricade in his robot mode. And now I will point out right from the start, his hips are a little bit different from mine because I did a little bit of modification, and that also went a little wonky, so it messed up the sculpt a little bit there. I'll get into that in a few minutes. But anyway, in his robot mode, he's like the color is broken up a bit more, although you see a lot more of this olive green, and I'm not a huge fan. It's just kind of weird looking to me. The shade just doesn't really do it for me, and there is a lot of it. And you actually see just a very tiny bit of the white for the doors on the sides there. So he's mostly green with a little bit of black, and then like just some of the facial details there. It also really makes these shoulders stand out. These like light gray shoulders. It's pretty much the only light gray on him, minus the hips there that you can barely see. So color-wise, I think they really could have done more with this. The silvery, it's almost purple. This like weird pastel-y purple, glittery, silvery paint that's picked out in a couple of places. It helps to break up the color monotony, but again, it's not a shade I'm super fond of. And honestly, it just kind of gets lost in this sea of olive drab. I guess there's like a little bit of silver here, which is also weird because that seems to be about the only silver that's actually on him, other than his face and his headlights. Yeah, I don't know. I think they kind of dropped the ball when it came to the color here. Although I will say his face has his face does have some nice detail to it. He looks he looks like an evil, buggy Decepticon, and he can open his mouth. But yeah, like the sculpt is really nice. It's, you know, appropriately angular and mean looking. I was never a huge fan of the actual design of his face, but just as far as like the actual, like the harshness of the angles and stuff, I think they did a good job as far as that and the details and such. It's also nice how he's got just the little bit of silver at the top and around the front of the face that kind of highlights things. And he's got his gold teeth that stand out a bit. He also does have red eyes, which don't really do any of that fancy glowing that a lot of people are probably used to their figures doing, which is a shame. Oh well. But moving on to the actual look, I think he looks okay. I mean, he was one of the earliest Human Alliance figures as far as I can recall, and, you know, they did refine their technique as time went on. But he does kind of, it kind of shows that he is one of the earlier ones. He's got this weird kind of lanky proportion to him. He doesn't, like, he has one hand and one, like, rotor blade thing, which was in the movie, but it's just, I think 2 hands would have been nice, because this is a pretty nice looking hand. It's even got, like, you can move the fingers and the thumb, and why couldn't we have that on both hands? But, oh well. I mean, you know, the overall shape is pretty decent. He's got some nice, there are certain details to him that does kind of say, like, this is definitely Barricade. Like the bits of the car up top here that kind of flare out to make his shoulders, these little flaps in the back. It looks decent. It's just, I feel like proportionally they could have done a lot more with it. I'm not a huge fan of his overall shape. And to get in on these hips here, the way the figure is meant to be displayed is like this, with his legs kind of a little bit closer together, which I think actually looks a little bit more awkward. I mean, it makes him taller, which is nice, but it just, like, now he has this super thin waist, And there were these, getting close here, there were these like ridges here that actually kept these legs from going all the way up, and I carved those away with the Dremel. Unfortunately, I was a little bit overzealous and ended up carving into the crotch section there a little bit on this side, but it got the job done. And now the hips sit a little bit higher, which, yeah, I think maybe the hips might be a little too wide now, but it's, I don't know, I think it looks better than when they're like super close together. It makes them more stable, allows them to stand up a little bit better. I don't know. It's a tough call with this guy. I mean, I do think he's a nice figure. I don't plan on getting rid of him anytime soon or anything like that, but he's very obviously, to me, like an earlier draft, and the future refinements are so much more interesting. But again, I think given the fact that they were just kind of feeling things out, this is a good early attempt. So that's it for my look at the Human Alliance, I believe Dark of the Moon Human Alliance Barricade. And I'll be following this up with a few more in the future, as many as I have in my collection, really. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and as I've said many times before, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, any combination of those three, and I would greatly appreciate it. And remember, as always, because I'm never going to stop saying this, art is more than meets the eye.